Can you talk about the Epstein files, which you say don't actually exist? And wanted to have you respond to this video clip of Donald Trump talking about the Epstein files, but also about other cases. Let's take a look.
Mr. President, you said,
when can we expect the Epstein documents to be released? The rest of them?
Which documents?
The Epstein files?
I don't know. I'll speak to the Attorney General about that. I really don't know. I know that we've done the RFK. The Kennedy, Martin Luther King is out there very shortly, so we'll find out. But we've really announced we're doing them in full transparency. You know, when we did JFK.
So to what extent is any of that true? I mean, have they done JFK, RFK, Martin Luther King? And what have they done so far with Epstein?
I don't really focus on JFK or RFK or Martin Luther King, but I am focused on Epstein. There is no Epstein list. It's apocryphal. It's like Jeffrey Epstein ran a travel agency and he had a list of all the perps and he kept them on his refrigerator with a magnet. I mean, that's nonsensical. Epstein had a black book and he's got a lot of flight logs, and there's a lot of names of perpetrators in the black book and on the flight logs. I don't know how it got started that there was an Epstein list. It's apocryphal. Maybe people just wanted to believe that there was an Epstein list, but what there is, and what's really incriminating, is the FBI drilled Epstein's safe, and there were hundreds, if not thousands, of discs. And then that was reported by the New York Times, and Business Insider reported that there was also hard drives. And the FBI agents also came across either hundreds or thousands of images of child rape material too. So Epstein had quite a cache of child rape material. And this is what's really, I mean, there's so many egregious things in the Epstein case, but this is really egregious. Those girls that were used for Epstein's cache of child rape material, those girls are going to be very, very damaged for the rest of their lives. And it's going to be very hard for them to join society. And they're going to have to work very, very hard and just to live kind of a baseline life. And because the feds were covering up Epstein and all the perpetrators, and we know who a lot of the perpetrators are, we know who a lot of the pimps are, I'm willing to bet everything I've got that the FBI didn't try to identify those victims and help them, which is, I mean, there's so many miscarriages of justice in the Epstein case, but that really sickens me that there were all those images of child rape material and the feds just ignored them, just ignored those girls. And those girls are going to be damaged for the rest of their lives.
And so what does this organization do that you have?
What we're doing with Epstein Justice is we want a congressional commission. And with a congressional commission, you can have independent investigations. And we want a congressional commission to look into Epstein. And it's pretty simple what we want, at least morally. We want to know why the government covered up child trafficking. When you cover up a crime, you're aiding and abetting that crime. So we want to know why the government is aiding and abetting child trafficking in the Epstein case. And we want the perpetrators who molested all those little girls to be prosecuted. Now, you think that that would be a slam dunk in a moral society, but we're going to need a majority in the House and a majority in the Senate. And that's what we're working for right now, is achieving a majority in the House, a majority in the Senate for an independent commission. And when people hear about commissions, they think of like commissions that, like the Warren Commission, that I don't think gave us a lot of truth. But congressional commissions have given us truth in the past. They've been different. than presidential commissions.
Like the church commission?
Well, the church hearings were amazing. I mean, the
Yeah.
church hearings gave us COINTELPRO, which was the FBI domestic spying program. They gave us Operation Chaos, which was the CIA domestic spying program. They showed that the CIA had funneled money to homicidal, genocidal dictators. And there were a lot of things that came to the fore with the Church Commission. And that's the kind of commission that we need. But it would be really simple. I mean, if the government wanted indictments in the Epstein case, they could have them tomorrow. I mean, it's really that simple. The New York Times wrote a full page article on 6 of the Epstein pimps. One was Ghislaine Maxwell, one was Sarah Kellen, one was Leslie Groff, one was Adriana Ross, Nadia Marcinkova, and Haley Robson. And only one of them was indicted, and that's Ghislaine Maxwell. Kellen, Groff, Ross, and Marcinkova knew all about that network. And there's a New York Times article that shows that they do. I mean, you could take that New York Times article and give it to a grand jury, and of course, you could call them. They would take the fifth. You could indict them all on child trafficking. And as I said earlier, that's a heavy sentence. Child trafficking in the federal system, it's 15 to life. So if you give those women 5 or 6 lifetimes in prison, or if that's what they're looking at, they're going to roll over on the perps. I mean, that's how simple it would be. It wouldn't be complicated to start getting indictments on those. They're called procurers in the article, I believe, but they're really pimps.
Right.
So the government, and actually the media, has been very disingenuous when they give us this story that, well, they don't know who this person is or that person. Then the Department of Justice knows exactly who the pimps and perpetrators are. And that's what's really galling, is that this could be taken care of pretty quickly if there was a will in the Department of Justice, if the Department of Justice wasn't so corrupt.
And when you say you there needs to be a majority, what do you mean a majority? What kind of majority?
Well, there's 100 senators, so there has to be 51 senators.
You mean who want to look into this?
Yes.
Got
Yes.
it. Yeah.
And there's 455 members of the House, so we need half of those. And at that point, we'd be able to have a commission. I talked to the staff person of a senator last week who's been very vocal about this. And he told me that they're waiting for Bondi too. Bondi has promised people on the Hill that she's going to deliver this time. And so they're waiting to see what's happening with what she's going to do. But I think she further hurt her credibility when, first of all, she said on national TV there's going to be names and blah, 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 blah. And then she gave us a nothing sandwich. Actually, I released more incriminating information on Jeffrey Epstein and his cadre of child molesters in 2015 than she released a month and a half ago. Actually, she had a copy of the Black Book and everything was redacted. When I put the Black Book up, I redacted the numbers of the people that were in there, and I redacted the numbers and the last names of the victims. But everything was redacted. I kind of got a kick out of that. But she further hurt her credibility. She said that there will be redactions because of national security. So what does a bunch of child molesters have to do with national security? That really, in my eyes, further hurt her credibility. Jeffrey Epstein has been a long saga, and it started in 2005. Maria Farmer says she went to the FBI in 1996, but we know for sure that it started in 2005 when a 14-year-old girl came into the Palm Beach Police Department with her parents, and she described Epstein's anatomy and Epstein's home. And then the Palm Beach Police Department did a fairly protracted investigation because of Epstein's notoriety and wealth, but they had the statements of 5 victims and they had 12 corroborating statements. So they were going to arrest him on 5 counts of child abuse. And then the case got taken away from them and given to a very corrupt grand jury. And I don't know if your audience is familiar with how grand juries work, but a special prosecutor is chosen to be head of a grand jury. And the special prosecutor, grand jurors are just people that have shown up for jury duty and they've been funneled to a grand jury. It's not like the gods of jurisprudence have spoken. And then the special prosecutor shows the grand jurors the evidence that he or she wants to show them. And they called the witnesses and they showed them the exhibits. And there was actually a New York Supreme Court judge who said that special prosecutors have so much power over grand juries that they could get them to indict a ham sandwich.
Ham sandwich, right.
So with the Epstein grand jury, they didn't indict Epstein on a single count of child abuse. And what galled the Palm Beach Police Department chief, Michael Ryder, he is a real unsung hero in this, is because they had the statements of 5 victims, but they were aware of 17 other additional victims. So they were aware of 23 victims that could have been called, but 2 were called and the prosecutor was calling them prostitutes. I mean, it was just really a black eye for American jurisprudence, that particular grand jury. And then Michael Ryder got very vocal and vociferous about he called it the greatest miscarriage of, I think he called it the greatest miscarriage of justice in modern times. And he went to the Department of Justice and he said to the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District, Alexander Acosta, you have to look into this. You have to indict these perpetrators. And the Department of Justice did start looking into it, and they had a list of 34 underage Epstein victims. But then Acosta just basically dropped the ball, and Emery Villafana, the assistant U.S. attorney, worked out this very, very horrific deal with Epstein, where Epstein ultimately ended up doing 13 months in the county jail. He could go out during the days and molest girls. He did go out during the days and molest girls. But they sealed that non-prosecution agreement because what that non-prosecution agreement said is that everybody else, all of Epstein's co-conspirators that molested these girls and pimped these girls out, have blanket immunity, which is really, really horrible. And Alexander Acosta became Trump's labor secretary. And when he was transitioning to labor secretary, he was being vetted by the Trump people. And the Trump people said, why were you so easy on Epstein? And he said, I was told that Epstein was intelligence and it was above my pay grade and to back off. Constitutionally, there's only 2 people that can tell a U.S. attorney to stand down. One is the attorney general and one is the president. Could be delivered by an minion of the attorney general or president, but those are the only 2 people. And at the time, Alberto Gonzales was the attorney general and George W. Bush was the president. Bush, too, was president. And I have a hard time believing that an attorney general would cover up a nationwide child trafficking network without his boss giving him the go-ahead. And his boss was George W. Bush at that point.